We got Brewer of the Year for the International Beer Challenge for the second year.
Gold medal just today.
Gold medal just for this, and
well,
we just got
Jamie, let me be the
today.
first mass media team and say congratulations,
Thanks so
dude.
much. Yeah.
Way to go. That's amazing.
And so that Brewer of the Year is over all beers.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. I am really excited. We have Jamie Lissette on, COO of Athletic Brewing. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's a pleasure. We've got so much exciting stuff to talk about. I can't wait. But we have to start off with the same two questions, man. What do you make? And why do you make it?
So we make non-alcoholic beer because, frankly, people who made it for the last couple of decades didn't really do an awesome job in terms of taste and quality. So, we came up with something new. So.
You definitely did, and I mean, it has exploded. I think is a fair way to say it. And I think just to give people maybe like a thumbnail sketch, we've gone from an idea in R&D roughly 5.5 years ago to launching the brand, I think 4.5 years ago, to the biggest craft non-alcoholic beer in the country.
Yep.
Second biggest non-alcoholic in the country in total, 220 employees, just skyrocketed to fame. The name is everywhere. And I think a lot of that has to do probably with the quality of the product.
Yeah, 100%. We actually probably really only made market about 3 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
So that all that growth happened in a more compressed timeline. When I started, it was August of 19. And we were taking inventory on a small little notepad, so things have evolved now, to say the least. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I think there's a lot of great stuff, Jamie, that we're going to be able to cover in terms of like scaling up, in terms of go to market, marketing, branding. I mean, there's a ton. Probably we'll have to have you back for a second episode, which will have two exciting things. Number one, we'll get to see you twice. And number two, we'll get more free beer. So
Absolutely.
That's exciting. But before we get into all the details of Athletic, I just think it's really interesting. One of our goals here is to help kind of broaden people's concept of what it means to be someone who could be successful in manufacturing. And I think a good way to do that is for people to tell their story and people hear the different circuitous routes people came to manufacturing, and brewing is most certainly manufacturing. Can you just help me and share with me and the audience, your story?
Yeah, so I came in after 17 years in finance. I had my own company, was doing information for financial traders. I have an identical twin brother who looks still to this day exactly like me. And he's in a manufacturing business that makes potato chips. He'd been there at his company for 25, 30 years while I was doing finance. When I had this opportunity after selling my company to figure out something new, I said, well, manufacturing, there must be something to do there because it's worked for, my closest reference. I found out about Athletic from some mutual friends and coming from finance and hearing about a company three or four different times organically, right? It makes you say, okay, something's going on there. I got to figure this out, right? And so I reached out to Bill Schufelt, who founded the company, and said, hey, I'd love to come up. You guys are 10 minutes from my house, and I sort of walked into this opportunity. We were in a small 8,000 square foot brewery in Stratford, and I tried the product, and I said, whoa, this is completely different than anything I would ever had. While I was in college, I spent probably 5 years of college working at a bar. And so I knew the hospitality business, food and beverage, and knew the other products that were out there, and knew why they weren't very successful, right? In the U.S., the non-alcoholic beer market's about 1% of the market. When I started, it was half of 1%, right? And then I looked at the analogs in Europe and said, okay, well, it's 5 to 15% in any market. Spain, it's 15% of the beer market, and their beer markets in Europe are at least 3 times bigger than ours. So if you do the math and the opportunity, I was able to look at this and see what it was, had the potential to be. So
let me just go back, and I don't know how much you know about the sort of the founding concept, but do you know sort of what the genesis of getting Athletic started was?
Yeah, I've heard it probably 600 times in 3 years.
Well, you're going to hear it 601
Exactly.
now.
Now I'll tell Bill's story. But Bill, our founder, was also in finance. He worked at the largest hedge fund in Connecticut, or the second largest actually. And he was working out, doing Ironmans, doing 100-mile trail runs and things like that. And the lifestyle of finance and drinking at night, 3 or 4 nights a week, and then waking up at 5 and trying to work out and things like that wasn't really working for him.
Yeah, finance guys do seem to know their way around the bar.
They do, especially when people were a little bit more client-centric, probably 10
going
years
out,
ago.
wining and dining, dinners.
Idea, right? There was a lot more of that. And what he noticed was there was never, ever an option, on the menu for anyone, right? Mm-hmm. That was non-alcoholic, where you could feel like, hey, I'm participating in this night, right? I've got something that I'm proud of in my hand, and could spend the evening with everybody else and enjoying it the same way, right? And he kept talking to his wife about it. He kept coming up with these ideas. He was downloading books on how to brew beer and things like that, like from University of California, Davis, right? Brewing program. And he's like, well, let me Google that, and this is while he's working on a trading desk, right? So I think finally his wife kind of like threw up her arms and said, will you stop talking about this and just do something, about it? And he decided literally that day, like, okay, I'm going to do something about it.
We're hitting all the highlights here. It's an entrepreneur that sees a problem, takes action. Behind every great man's an even greater woman. I mean, this is we're hitting all the high notes here.
Yeah, and she, she convinced him, and he convinced himself with some of the data that he had found, and referencing the different beer markets across the globe, and saying, wait, there is actually a commercial opportunity here. Right. There's an opportunity to do better for the world, right, by giving an option so that you're, one of the quotes he usually talks about is this concept of like having a children's menu for drinks, right? That are not beer, wine, or liquor, right?
Right.
What are you going to drink at a $200 dinner? A Diet Coke, a seltzer, chocolate milk, like, whatever it's going to be, it's not going to raise the level to where you are, enjoying something. Yep. And nothing really pairs better with food than beer, right?
100%.
Beer and wine are classic for thousands of years. At least in beer's case, thousands of years have had beer as something that's, goes side by side.
And so this is really the genesis. And I mean, when you think about the beer market in Europe, and I don't know very, very little about it, is the thesis then that the reason why it's a higher percentage is because the quality of the, so by the way, for those listening, we'll use the term NA for non-alcoholic. Yep. So is it because the NA beers in Europe are just of a similar quality that Athletic is at? That's the sort of the hypothesis?
We still think we're better. So we actually export to the UK now, and we're winning awards where we export, right, in Canada as well. I think that they have a beer culture that goes over hundreds of years, right, if not 1,000 years. Right. I mean, we've got a 300-year-old country.
Right, we're a baby country.
I think there was some stats I was reading the other day in the 70s. There was less than 50 breweries in the United States, something like that. Crazy.
Oh, wow.
Right now there's 9,000.
Right.
So it's definitely become more of our nomenclature, and our product that we used to have was this sort of watered down lager, right? Mm-hmm. That was the original beer that was in this country, right?
Everyone talks about it, yeah.
Right. And so if you go to Germany and other places, you had these, all types of variation and flavorful, and people have been brewing non-alc beer for decades, and if not 100 years probably, with experimentation and things like that. So I think you've got that history. They also have very different rules and laws in Europe. If you go to Sweden, and I know some Swedish guys, and they won't have one drink if they're getting behind a car, right? It's just part of the culture. It's not, you just do not break that law. Nobody does. Right. And so lastly, I'd say smaller apartments and, in a cafe culture, right? In many places that we don't have here.
And so why would the cafe culture?
I think you spend 3 or 4 hours at a cafe in Paris, reading the paper, working on something, whatever it is, right? You can't be sitting there drinking beers all afternoon and then go on to, to normal daily behavior.
Right.
I think one of our investors said something once that clicked with me was, if you have like a beer or two at lunch, right, or a drink, right, you're basically putting a line in the sand for the rest of your day. Yeah. Right. And I get that. It's interesting. About 80% of our demographic drinks, right? And that's a very
Wait, no, say that again. 80% of your demographic drinks.
of our customers drink alcohol, right? And so what the other thing that is very intuitive or interesting about Athletic is it's not meant to be an exclusive society of sobriety type thing, right? It's really supposed to be an alternative drink for whenever that occasion arises, right? So Sunday night, Monday night, Saturday night, whatever it is, for everybody has their own idea of where this fits in. Right?
As opposed to sort of being pigeonholed into the idea of we're the drink for people that don't drink.
Right.
We're the drink for people who want to enjoy the taste that they really like without the alcohol to go with it whenever they might want to do that.
It's really great beer that doesn't have alcohol in it.
Right.
Right. If you think about it from that perspective, it's a nice way to think about it.
I still struggle, and I'll share the story for the audience. I was sharing it with you that my wife and I were out to dinner a few weeks back at a restaurant in West Hartford, and she was looking at the menu and she's not drinking alcohol. So, right. She feels exactly, I think, what you said, which is sort of you want to go out and participate and sort of feel like you're doing something, but you don't want to order off the kids menu. And sometimes, and she enjoys a good beer. So we saw this non-alcoholic IPA. So she ordered it and we were like, oh, we'll see how this is. And then showed up and she took a sip of it and she's like, I think they gave me the wrong beer. Yeah. And I took a sip of it, and then she called the waitress over. She's like, I ordered the non-alcoholic beer. She's like, that's what that is. She's like, can you just double check with the bartender?
Right.
She came back and was like, yeah, that's the non-alcoholic beer. And our minds were just blown, and it was an Athletic.
Yeah, I mean, I think so we do a different process than anybody's ever done it. So we have a bunch of different things that we do during the process. We brew a fully fermented beer. Right. I think when you're thinking about any other option that's been out there for the last couple of decades, you're having something that's brewed with alcohol, you're de-alkalizing it, and you're adding something back into it, right? Because you've taken out a lot of the taste. Right. You filtered out, you don't mean to, but you filtered out all these different components.
Yeah, it's just sort of like a sieve. If it needs to be a certain size, anything that's bigger than that's going to get stuck.
Right. Something's going to come out of it when you're doing that. And so many times you have to add something back in to give it some flavor.
So
right?
is that that's
the old way.
The old way. Okay.
Yeah. And so our new way, which we have a patented process, and we protect it and we don't publish it.
But you're going to share it with us right now. So go ahead.
Exactly.
Tell us every single step.
Get the whiteboard.
That's right.
It would be my last day at Athletic. But basically, it's a very different process. We own our own processes. We own our own facilities. We have a very special way that we make this, and there's nothing in it except for the ingredients.
So just rewind to the old way, and are mass-produced NA beers still made, quote, the old way?
Primarily, yeah.
So let's just, I want to see if I can follow this. So the old way, it's not brewed the same as a normal beer?
It is brewed the same as a normal beer, then it's de-alkalized. So then it goes.
So basically, you brew it normal, then you have to do something to strip off the alcohol, and that's what yanks out the. And then they put. When you say, do you know what the something else is?
No, I mean I don't want to presume what they put in it, but my guess is it's something for flavor, right? Because you're going to make something. Maybe it's too bitter, maybe it's too sour, or something like that, or maybe it tastes like metal or something, because of the process. And then it comes out and it has a different taste to it, and it tastes unnatural.
Yeah, you're drinking. I mean, I was telling you before. It's been a long time since I had one, but I mean, I can remember the times having them, and it just doesn't feel like you're drinking. It feels like you're drinking a fake beer. Yes,
exactly. And that's just not a great feeling.
No, it defeats the purpose to going back to the original thesis here, which is people who drink or don't want to be able to sort of feel like they're having the same experience they had without the alcohol, which all of us can appreciate anytime. When you're drinking a beer that tastes fake, it's sort of like that, for me, I can't get behind stevia, like that fake flavor. All it tastes is like fake sweetness, and it's not good.
And now that you've tried our beer and you see somebody else trying our beer, you're going to say, I understand why he's drinking it.
100%. It
tastes great.
100%. Yeah.
Right. So I think that was what was missing before. Right, because if you did see somebody with the older brands, right, and you're like, whoa, I think I know why he's drinking that, and it's not because it tastes good, right? And that's it's just a weird feeling, I think, where we've been able to overcome that. Our message is always affirmative, pedestal, no, we're better than you or anything like that. It's just a really great product. It's a beer, it just doesn't have alcohol in it. So
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, the time I drank at a restaurant, it just came out in a pint glass, and it looked like every other IPA. Anyway, whatever. So it's delicious.
Yeah. And we're working on draft. So we'll have in 23 we'll have draft in a couple locations. So, which is kind of interesting. There's a technological part of it that because of food safety that we had to work on, and we figured it out.
What do you mean?
Well, you don't have ethanol, right, in your beer. So we tunnel pasteurize our beer, right?
I don't know what that means.
This is like a 45-minute shower in a 5,000 square foot contraption that, it's like a hot bath.
Okay.
Right? And the temperatures change and things like that. And then when it comes out, you've essentially killed anything that could live in that can, right? Because the ethanol usually would kill that.
Oh,
right?
I got you. Because okay, so just if I can just repeat back what I think I understand in in Ari terms. So basically, the alcohol kills whatever might be in the can.
Right.
So when you remove the alcohol, you remove that sort of the sanitizing effect that the alcohol has. So you have to replicate that with whatever this bath
So we basically
process.
just put it through this bath process. A lot of juices and things do that process, right? Because you don't want an organism just growing.
When you're saying you're putting something in, it's the can.
It's the can. Yeah,
Got it.
The can goes through it. It's just on a conveyor belt.
Got it.
Its way through there slowly, and then it comes out the other end, and it's
Which can't be something super innovative, right? We've got all kinds of other things that are canned.
Oh yeah,
that don't have alcohol.
tons of things are tunnel pasteurized. Tons of different beverages. It really just gives it shelf life, and it gives it protection from.
Oh, and the kegs would have the same exact problem. So you got to figure out how to tunnel pasteurize.
Keg can't fit in the tunnel pasteurizer.
That's what I was just putting that
got
together.
A little window that it goes through.
Yes.
But we've figured it out how to make it happen. And,
really small kegs.
I wish. Right? Like they're 12 ounces. 12-ounce kegs.
They're just changing them out regularly. Yeah,
exactly.
So what was the solution?
So we do a flash pasteurization of that, which is a different type of way to pasteurize. But you keep it cold from that standpoint on. You keep it in a cold truck, cold chain, everything all the way to the bar or restaurant where it has it. So.
Okay. And so then that's the key, is the keeping it cold.
Yeah, and there's a lot better margins in draft, so it's something that we've been working at for a long time.
Well, that's the finance guy in you right there,
exactly.
going, hey, wait a minute, there's a better way. Yeah, I got that. So let's kind of pivot a little bit. We were talking earlier that NA beer is about 1% of the total beer market. So it's about like a $3 billion North American business.
No, I mean it's very, very, very
that'd be 10%.
small. Yeah,
no, that'd be 10%.
It's about 300 million.
300 million. Yeah, sorry, way low. Okay, sorry. So 300 million. So, and you guys are about half of that.
So we're half the craft NA beer market.
Okay.
And then we're the second seller. The second best seller in the whole NA beer market. Our sales this year will be under 100 million. Next year they'll be above 100 million. Like not to give too much of a financial forecast. But we're growing. Each year has been about at least 100%. Some obviously 2 or 3 years ago, much
just
more.
Wait till 10 years from now, it'll be huge. No,
yeah, exactly. Just keep going forever.
Exactly, forever. Yeah. So the point I was trying to get to is you're kind of creating a new market.
Yeah.
And so how did you guys think about it? I think you were around for at least the big launch, because you mentioned it was on paper. I'm sure you guys aren't doing orders on notepads right now.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about that go-to-market strategy to sort of build the demand as you go? Because I mean, again, having tasted it, once you taste it, you get it. Right. But someone has to order it to start off with, and understanding that your market positioning isn't going after sort of the I can't drink crowd. I mean, that's okay.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, 80% of your consumers aren't I can't drink, they're I choose not to drink.
Right.
So how did you think about that go-to-market strategy, and how did you execute it? Obviously to big success.
Well, we thought number one, we need to be on the beer shelf. Right. So when you go to
as opposed to the soda shelf.
Exactly. Or like a non-alcoholic mixer shelf or something like that. Right. Our customer is a beer drinker. Right. And that's what we are. And so we're trying to get on there. So we actually went, I think in the last 3 years, I've signed 170 distributor agreements. Right. And, some take a day, some take 8 months.
Right.
Right. Anybody knows how to redline is the beverage market. Right?
Yes.
Because, and you understand both ends of that transaction, because they're helping you build a brand. We're helping them with margin and volume and high velocity product and things like that. So it is a win-win, but to get there, it's a lot of discussion about like what happens if you wanted to leave that partnership, right?
But was there some barriers to entry in that? Like, I don't know. I just imagine the conversation that says, "Hey, guess what? We got this great new craft beer," and I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it sells at a bit of a premium over even over an alcoholic craft beer.
We're in line with alcohol, so it should be per unit almost the same.
Okay, so hey, we've got a great idea. Here's a non-alcoholic craft beer, costs more than a regular beer, about the same as an alcoholic beer. Can you sell it for us?
Give us a shot.
Yeah, I feel like that's not an obvious yes.
I think the missing part of all of that is DTC,
right?
Because we're not alcohol, so we can ship our beer direct to consumer in 45 states, right?
What happened to the other 5?
The other 5 have odd definitions of what alcohol is. So I don't want to name out states, but certain states will be.
They know who they are.
They know who they are. But certain states it's anything with malt, right? Anything with malt is a beer. Okay, so you have
anything with malt.
Anything with malt.
Malt to India, whatever.
You're now malt, and you're a restricted or regulated product. Right. And I think a lot of this came from prohibition, right? Because it's all about when prohibition ended, they were protecting the former, people that were distributing beer or alcohol. And so in certain states, a non-intoxicating liquor goes up to 13%. So if you've ever had a 10% IPA, triple something,
that'll get you.
That's probably slightly intoxicating.
It's slightly.
Type thing. Yeah. But because we could go DTC and COVID hit sort of right, in the middle of this growth spurt, we were able to sort of build a market across the country very, very quickly. So
don't let a good crisis go to waste.
I mean, think about let's go as far away as Hawaii, right? And if I can ship 2,000 to 5,000 cases of beer to Hawaii DTC and build a market, no alcohol brand in the world could have ever done that. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we were the first brand that was in beer that could ship a package and build a marketplace so that when we went to talk to a beer distributor, we could say,
right, we already demand, here's my sales. Okay, fine. So I get criticized sometimes for getting nerdy on these podcasts, but it's my show. Yeah. So I can do what I want. We're going to go a little finance nerdy here. So, I mean, everyone talks about DTC and I know it's been a big deal, in general, but the client acquisition cost, the CAC for DTC is often extremely high. Yep. And this isn't exactly cheap to ship, right? I mean, liquids are notoriously expensive to ship. And so that's a different go-to-market strategy. So how did you get customers interested to even do the order, sort of a DTC approach? Because that's still an educational process.
So social marketing, social media and Instagram and Facebook and all the, the different things that everybody does. We'd also do what we call
influencer style, or did you guys
everything? So we've got influencers, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. We've got podcast ads. We've got, everything from, we mentioned Ironman once, the Ironman partnership. So we
actually mentioned that pre-show, so we should talk about that.
So we're national partners with Ironman, and at every race we'll have beer and somebody handing out beer at the end of it, right? So this customer comes off the race, they say, "Ooh, I love a beer." We give them a beer that doesn't have alcohol, and they're like, "Oh, that's better. Really good. I just rehydrated." There are hydrating components to this. That's really good. And between that and then they look up our website, then they're, I hate to say tracked by, Instagram bots or something, but they're seeing us more. And then, and then slowly, if we weren't in their market at retail, we eventually got there. So we're in 50 states. So at the retail level. So then they see us there. And we were able to do variation through the website, right? So I've got 4 or 5 flagships that will be in a store. And then I've got, this is a variation that we just do.
Which one?
This is the Dark and Gordy. That's why it's in the silver. It's just a pilot program. And I'll use that same cover of a box. Okay. And then I'll laser print on the different brand. But last year we did 45 different beers. So it's kind of like a virtual tap room where, if you go to one of the breweries here in Connecticut, right, you want to see what's on tap. You've got something, I can't buy that at Star Market. but I know if I go there, I'm going to try something I haven't tried before.
Star market, you're giving up your Massachusetts roots right there.
Right?
Giving up your Mass roots.
Wicked good marketing.
Wicked good marketing. Yeah, they remembered. That's funny.
But that gives us this variation.
So that's why this. So that's why this is Athletic Brew pilot program. So this. So this thing at the top, dark and Gordy. This could be anything.
Could be anything.
So when I see a silver and blue, choose your own adventure, baby.
Yep, and you're not going to find that at retail. So you're just going to be able to find that on our website. So the website offers, for me, I think the website offers convenience and variation, right? Convenience is a subscription. I'm going to give you a couple bucks off, for subscribing. You're going to subscribe and you're going to have your case, delivered every month or 6 weeks or whatever it is you want, right? That's my convenience. And then the variation.
Do you guys still have a pretty good recurring revenue stream on those subs?
Yeah, we ship about 40,000 packages a month.
Really?
Yeah, and we self-fulfill out of our 2 facilities, and we optimize for zones, so we don't get as killed, with our small parcel rates. But we're always sort of tweaking our go-to-market for that, and I think since I've started, I think our shipping rates are down 70%,
Wow.
from when we were before. It still costs a lot to find a customer, to your point. Right, on social media has gotten less efficient.
Well, also higher competition, and since people competing for ads drives up the cost of the ad without them having to increase prices, you just get whacked.
And there's a number of other brands that are out there competing, and they're using our AdWords and we're using theirs, and so we think we have the better product, and
So if I just peel back the layers real quick, from an operator's lens, it seems like the stuff you did, and this is not in any way a knock on what you guys did. It's not a sort of genius approach. Mm-hmm. It's maybe consistency, and then it's got to be a whole huge helping of great quality product.
Yeah. Yeah, cans and hands is what we talk.
Hands and hands
is our activation at the end of the Ironman race, right?
Okay.
But we did, I think we did 39,000 cans and hands events or something, since we started. Which is anything from a sample in a store. We've got 40 salespeople. We've got 1,500 ambassadors. These ambassadors sign up and they get they get nice T-shirts and things like that, and they'll help out at events because our 40 people couldn't do all those events, right? Our 40 sales guys and women. So these ambassadors will go and work an event for us, and they're compensated. And
I was going to say they do it for a T-shirt because now that's innovative.
But they get discounts on the beer, and they're true, and there's an application process and everything. So it's we have a full-time sort of brand ambassador type person that helps out with that, but it's truly building that community, and then hopefully they're telling their friends and then sharing it when they're out and asking for it at restaurants and things like that. So it's a very intensive process, but I think we had to build over the last 3.5 years. We've had to build athletic, and we've had to build a category. Right?
Yeah.
Usually there's a category that has if ice cream, right? Ooh, ice cream's great.
Right.
Everybody loves ice cream.
Right.
But non-alc beer is sort of overcoming this hump for 30 or 40 years of other products that have been out there. And so this is, we have to do 2 things. Right.
Well, I was thinking about that prepping for the show, just thinking about that, right? So, and there's no doubt that's a big challenge, right? I mean, Luckily people already drink beer, so you kind of overcome that hurdle.
Yep.
Listen, if you're in an established market, take ice cream, you don't have to build the category, but you got a lot more competition. Yeah. So it's sort of a little bit of a pick your poison.
I'd rather be in our position.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think and being
a little bit of blue ocean there.
A lot of blue ocean, and I think especially if you're literally changing the category to something that tastes really great. So this just won an award today, the Free Wave.
The Free Wave.
Yep, just won. This is a double hop hazy IPA, and it just won the gold at the International Beer Challenge today. And we got Brewer of the Year for the International Beer Challenge for the 2nd year.
Gold medal just today.
Gold medal just for this, and we just got
Jamie, let me be the first mass media team to say congratulations,
so
dude.
much. Yeah.
Way to go. That's amazing.
And so that Brewer of the Year is over all beers. So it's not.
Wait, what?
It's not just non-alc beer.
Of all beers?
We weren't just the Brewer of the Year over 5 brands, right?
That's what I thought you were saying, to be honest with you.
No, it's over all of them. So wow. I mean that just goes to tell you, what we're doing. So our head brewer John Walker Slightly,
Johnny Walker?
Slightly ironic, but I loved it too. Johnny Blue.
That's right. Changed his name. Changed his name just for the job.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and there's a good story behind how Bill found John. But John was a award-winning brewer in New Mexico, originally from Connecticut. I think was looking for a way to get back, with his family and wanted to stay in brewing and this and that. And he got email outreach from Bill, who had, I think, emailed like 200 brewers asking if they'd be interested in this NA opportunity. I think at 199, he figured out, let me take the NA off.
That's right, exactly.
Because nobody writes me back, And so he was able to find John Walker, and who wrote back and said, well, this might actually work. I'm looking to come back. I love a challenge. It sounds like what you're proposing is a challenge, and bless both of them, but they figured this out. And, when I came, I think there was 10 people. So that year and a half to 2 years prior to me coming was a real bootstrap. Building a small brewery, inventing their process, over thousands of iterations, working out of garages, literally building a brewery from scratch, a small one, but it would still doesn't
start somewhere.
It doesn't make it less hard to put together. And then I guess the other challenges that we've hit is coming through COVID, right?
Right. Which turned out to actually, to the point I hadn't thought about it before, but I know, having spoke to some of the other craft brewers who do, alcoholic beer in Connecticut, that the COVID was a huge challenge because, they couldn't ship direct. People couldn't come to the tap rooms because the tap rooms were closed. Restaurants were closed. And, so they were really struggling to get it done. You guys kind of took the other approach. Why Athletic, the name?
I like to say because it's an A, and so alphabetically, it's like right there at the front of the phone, if anybody uses those anymore. But actually, our graphics and design team that are based out of Boston, they did sort of a naming, thing between them and Bill when he was first starting. They had some other names, which I don't honestly know what they are, or I'd share them, but they ended up coming back each time to Athletic. And it just was affirmative. I think it could, we export to UK, Canada, EU, and Australia, right? With working on bigger deals in other countries as well. And Athletic, Atletica, it translates into a lot of different languages. And if you'll notice too, just to jump on it too, is the branding. It's not regional or, it's not pulling you to one thought in your head. It's sort of like this universal, hopefully packaging, right?
100%. I agree with that. And then the piece that I didn't know if it was related was just, obviously there's the Iron Man tie-in, and just, if you're going to be athletic, non-alcoholic beer is probably a little bit better for us.
Yeah. So our challenge now is, so we, I don't think we've hit all the low-hanging fruit, but it is time as a company to sort of broaden our reach too, right? And
what do you mean? You feel like, not all of it, but you feel like you've kind of picked up the easy. It's not easy, but the relatively easy pickups, and now it's going to be really making the move to the next thing.
Everybody's not a Iron Man, right? I think everybody can be an athlete, and I think that's where that's sort of like a marketing message, right? Like everybody's an athlete. You go for a walk, you're doing something athletic, right? But we don't have to only be looking at an Iron Man,
right?
Who's ran a marathon after biking 100 miles and swimming too, right?
Right.
And so I think that our marketing message now will broaden. I think over the next couple of years to be a little bit more less exclusive, right, and more inclusive of sort of everybody, because this is a drink for everybody.
No, there's no question about it. And I'll say this too. And I was just having this conversation with some friends last weekend when we were out. Like I felt like I wanted to have a couple of beers, and we're looking at the beers that we had at my friend's house, and I'm like, dude, I can't have 3 8%ers. Like I can have one. And sometimes I just wanted to watch the game, and like I knew I was going to want to have a couple. Yeah. And I think, the press to kind of have more and more alcohol in these like beers is making it harder and harder to enjoy drinking a couple of beers.
I think we fit perfectly into that night.
Yeah,
right?
You do.
And that's that occasion where if you're having an event, right, and you're going to have a case of beer, have a 6-pack of us. Right. Like, and I think that's where, because if you're describing that night, I like to say when I'm at a beer distributor meeting and there's a lot of people and these companies have been around for decades of beer and they still don't, potentially get, the concept. Right. And I just say 3rd beer, 5th beer, 7th beer. Right. And
right.
oh, right. Right. I don't have to just, it's like, oh my gosh. So if I was going to have 6 beers in the night, I've reduced my alcohol by at least 50%. Right. But I've also, like, to your point, there's 4% beers, right? Corona or something like that. There's 8% beers, a double, IPA, right? And you don't necessarily want that 8%. But if you had your second one was a 0, right?
You're averaging,
you could
you're
probably
dollar cost averaging with alcohol.
Right? You're netting out at 4, call it, right?
Right.
But the point is, like, you can be creative, and own your destiny to some degree of how you want the night to go, or the afternoon, or whatever it is, and you can really make that choice. And I think that's the beauty of it, and have this in your hand, right? And be proud that it's in your hand, and be like, my next one's an 8. Like,
yeah.
Like, well, why wouldn't I? Why don't I do the math, type thing? So.
So it's really about changing. It's got to be a little bit about educating once again and sort of changing consumer behavior to help them understand exactly what you just described, which going back to where we started on this, I think really does lend itself to sort of long form advertising, which is where you can maybe get some of the influencer and like Facebook and stuff like that. So you must have a pretty big marketing team.
We have a big one. I mean, as big as almost as big as anybody in beer to some degree. And I think that's because we're doing the category and the company, right? And we're lifting 2 loads, really, right? My brother's company has, I think, 50% less people than us and 20 times as much revenue, type thing. And I think that
people know about potato chips.
Right, exactly. And I think that, they don't need to, tell people about potato chips, and we need to tell people about any beer or the experience I just described, right? We need to get that out there. And so we're pushing really hard. We have a couple moats, I think, right? 2 facilities, 2 massive facilities. If I like to say the one in Connecticut is the largest non-alc dedicated beer brewery in the world, right? So we built this to do 450,000 barrels, and our one in California can do about 200,000 barrels. I believe that capacity is bigger than the current non-alcoholic beer market in the country, right? Like, so we built this.
Ready.
We built it for success. We've most companies that sort of grow as fast as us don't build their own facilities, right? And so that comes with, that's good and bad, right? I've built the moat, but I've spent a lot of my equity.
That's right.
To get the money to build these things. We think we have a process that's unique to us. We're building. We just want to own that shelf. And if we have 4 or 5 of the SKUs in the middle, and then 2 of our larger competitors have the bookends, I think we've got the market, right, with the best quality product. So nobody else is doing it. The IPAs really like we are. So is
it still like in from a financial perspective, still very much in like growth mode? So burning capital as opposed to earning it.
Yep. We've got a month circle that's not too far in the future.
Okay.
Where we go profitable. So it's kind of nice. And our latest investment that just happened last week. That's going to allow us to get there.
Congratulations, by the way. Yes, a big investment. I think it was announced, right? The amount of the investment.
Yeah, it was $50 million from Keurig Dr Pepper. So awesome people, great partners. We're very excited to work with them. So
that's cool. So talk to me a little bit about growing the business from the people side. One of the things we talk about all the time on the show, because it's like, actually I was just talking to somebody earlier. If I go back to like our 3rd episode, I think we had Jason Howie from OK Industries, and this was pre-COVID, back in 2019. So what are your top 3 challenges? And he said, easy. Workforce, and workforce. Right. And I think people in manufacturing generally believe that remains the same, if not top 4 challenges: workforce, and workforce. Yeah. So what are you guys seeing on that front? I mean, because at this growth, you need people.
Yeah, so we've gone from 10 to 225, right?
Exactly. Like I said, you need some
3
people.
3 years, we're pretty even, 33% in Connecticut, 33 in California, and 33 remote. I think we've been lucky because we've got, one of our tenants is helping the community, right? And so people are much more aware of, hey, I want to work for that company that does, good. We give 2% of all of our revenues to something called 2 for the Trails, right? It's for trail and park cleanup.
Of revenue.
Revenue, yeah, not profits.
Of revenue.
Right. So we'll give away
2% hit to gross profit, just
right. Yep. And I think people see that we're a B Corp, right? So people see that. I'm not going to pretend that people probably don't see also, a very successful, financially viable company. And so that's something where, well, I want to be in beer. I could go regionally and I could work at this small place, or I could go with something that I think is going to be a national and global company, right? I probably, if I'm thinking ahead 10 or 15 years, I'm probably keeping that in the back of my head. We've had extremely low churn. Probably 2 to 3%. A lot of that was, which is remarkable. Most people that have left, it's been something personal, or it's just wrong person, wrong seat that you're going to get.
I mean, 2 to 3%, you can't possibly get better. Yeah.
I mean, we don't have drivers. I was at a beer conference on Monday, and people, but it was drivers.
Yeah.
Right. And so we don't self-distribute. So, we're a little bit immune from that because we do have those 170 beer distributor partnerships that, basically we either ship to them or they pick up.
Right. And the D2C parcel, someone else is driving those.
And the D2C we do in-house, right? And so
you don't drive them is what I'm saying.
No, exactly. Yeah. But we don't use a 3PL. So we do have a heavy team for those types of positions. But
which is the fulfillment
we get beer
positions.
out same day sometimes, So, and those are positions that we've paid well. We have better benefits, I would argue, than almost anybody, I think, from like a health and wellness perspective. We pay above average. Like, we do all the things that we're supposed to do and we are a growth company. So it is different. I think manufacturing, historically is, usually it's a family business and you're 20, 30, 40 years into it. You're not thinking like a growth company. You're thinking like this is a lifestyle, sustainable business.
If we can grow single digits percentage every year, we're solid. Let's maximize margins, improve process.
Right, and look at every decision from that perspective. Right. And when you're growth, it's when you're a sub $100 million business, thinking there's a $2 billion market we could capture half of, that's different mindset. And we need to act fast, and our investors understand that, and our investors believe in us, and and we give them the map ahead. That's it's not going to look pretty the growth's going to look pretty, but the net results are not going to look pretty until this time, and then we will have invested so much. That we're the market leaders, and the runway is multi-decades from there. So,
and the thesis being, as opposed to say like some of those like some of the technology thesis, which is like capture market share, and then because our incremental cost of goods is near zero, that's not the case here. This is really about just become the 800-pound gorilla of NA craft beer, and if we build a big enough moat. And part of that moat is IP, part of that moat is capacity to build. The other part of the moat is like, we're just there first. So the first mover advantage, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I guess missing from that is just economies of scale.
Right.
So
that was sort of that was the capacity, but yeah.
So we've been able to I mentioned our shipping costs are down 70%.
Oh, right.
For DTC, our cost of making a barrel of beer is much lower with our new facility because it's, 15 times more efficient type thing, and we can put out hundreds of thousands of dollars of beer in a day versus, in a month, right? So
we've come a long way from a garage, Jamie.
We're no more chicken scratch, to say how many pallets of beer I have. So I think just over time, like all of those things, with any company, but manufacturing especially, once you get the right people in that are looking at every single dollar and saying, well, why do we do that? Let's cut that out or something. So, but we've been really good lately, especially since opening the new facility, at capturing those and finding them and saying, okay, now we're set. Right, we're not moving again, so we know our lanes, we know our different things and what we can store and things like that. So.
Listen, I think it's awesome, and you've brought something kind of new and different to the manufacturing ecosystem in Connecticut. And I know we're running out of time, but just indulge me for a couple more things. Sure. I think you guys have really gotten pretty engaged in manufacturer CT, and I just wonder, maybe you could explain your thought process on why you guys decided to engage there and what you see you're getting out of it, and why it's important to put time into it.
Yeah, so I think manufacturing coming from finance. Right, it's like what goes on behind that building's wall, right? You have no idea, and I didn't have any idea either. I knew how chips were made, right, from my brother, and I'd been in their factory and see things like that. But as you go down any place, especially any place across the country, but in Connecticut, and you're seeing these warehouses, and you're seeing these, and you're always wondering like, what does a manufacturer of tooling do?
Right.
Like, I still
What
don't
is
know.
a tool maker? Do they make screwdrivers?
I still don't know, but I was introduced to manufacturer CT from one of our subtenants when we took over this building. And it's just a really great group I was never a big joiner of like memberships and things like that. But having joined it now, I sort of see the other side. And I think the most valuable thing to me is spending once a month, spending 2 hours and knowing that you're just chatting with people who have the same issues and having the ability to write a quick email and say like, I need pallets. Like,
right.
Who's got a pallet guy?
Right, who's got a
and
pallet
to get
guy.
6 pallet guys back to you that you've never heard of, never could find on the internet, and things like that with an intro, right? And then suddenly you've got pallets, right? Like that's the ability to use the community to all understand that you're not competing with each other necessarily, but you're learning best resources or efforts or things like that. Yeah. And so that's been really, really helpful. I like the guys there. I'll have a beer with them and I'll have an A beer with them.
Right.
Like they're just super people. So.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy you said that because it's funny. I've got a little bit of a business finance understanding, but I'm more on the ops side. Yep. And I think it's interesting you've sort of come more to the ops side. And on the ops in the ops world, we understand the value. I've learned, I should say, the huge value of these groups for exactly what you said. It's like, who's got a guy, and it could be pallets, it could be the big snowstorm and no one's showing up or whatever.
Who's looked at solar and who would you say yes to and who would you say no to, right? And if you hear the don't mess with these guys, like type thing, it's like whew, scratched off. And I've just avoided months, if not years of problems by doing something like that. And then somebody saying like I've seen the benefit of that or I haven't seen the benefit of it. Like our bills, they changed, but
it wasn't there.
Reevaluate before you take the leap, because I think it's everybody in manufacturing and everybody in business gets sold to a lot, right? And I think one of the it's not my saying, obviously, but is to say no every once in a while.
Yeah,
right? Like it's just as valuable as saying yes. And so just they help you say no sometimes. They help you say yes. So.
And cut through the noise and save you time.
Absolutely,
which is
awesome.
Yeah. Jamie, man, it's been awesome chatting with you. This has been super fun. Yeah. I'm going to switch us to a rapid fire round of questions and we'll wrap it up. You ready?
Great.
All right. Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
Nice.
I can't sit here.
It's
in
a
this
Falmouth boy, exactly.
Right?
Stop mocking.
Exactly. Cappies.
That's right. It's Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
There we go. Like, iPhone or Android?
Android.
When you, I'm surprised. Yeah, when you take time off, you staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic destinations.
Sports car or SUV?
SUV.
You got a favorite business book?
Reminiscences of a Stock Operator.
What is it?
Reminiscences of a Stock Operator.
Of a stock operator.
Yeah. It tells a story about some speculator from I forget now, the 1900s or something like that. But great read.
That's amazing. That'll make our list. Thank you. Yeah. If you had, do you have a favorite? Oh, you just said book. If you had to do something other than be COO of Athletic Brewing, and it could be anything in the whole world, what would you do?
That's a good question. Probably like run a hotel or something. Right.
Like that.
Yeah. I love if you've ever done like the Hogan test or something like that. It's like a personality test, and it was like 100% leisure. Right? Like I don't want to tell you what my empathy score was, but it was 100% leisure. And I love hotels. I love traveling. I love all that stuff. So it's always been sort of like the back of my head. Like, well, maybe I could do that. It'd be a good retirement place.
I was going to say there's still time.
Yeah.
What's something that you learned early in your life or early in your career, Jamie, that you think help propel you to all the success that you've had?
Accountability, I think, is number one. I tell my whole team, you have to be accountable. You have to say, I'm going to do something, and then you have to do it. And you have to have somebody who's leading you or working with you that's asking you, where are you on that? Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that what happens so many times is people don't do that. Right? I really don't like a false promise. Or I'll look into that if it's really important. So I think that, having daily reminders even to yourself of still got to work on that. Still got to, I need to talk to the lawyers about this and I got to get an answer and I got to, because otherwise you go 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 months and something hasn't happened that was really important, right? And it slips through the back of your head. So making yourself accountable, making your team accountable, I think that's something that's important to me. So.
No question about it. What's something, Jamie, that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back in time and tell young Jamie, and if he'd listened to you, have a real positive impact on him?
You're going to love this answer.
Okay, I can't wait.
Drink more NA beer.
That's actually a pretty good piece of advice.
It's pretty
a pretty good piece of advice.
Yeah, remember the 3-5-7?
That's right. I was thinking the same thing.
Yep.
Listen, man, that was awesome. I'm going to leave it right there.
Awesome.
It has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Same. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.